No one saw this coming. For years, Mike Beets worked under the shadow of his famous father, Tony, running the family's gold mining empire and managing crews and operating heavy machinery. Unlike his more public siblings, he stayed out of the spotlight and quietly built something of his own, while his father's wealth reached $15 million. Mike's net worth was only a small part of that amount until now. After years of hard work in the harsh Yukon, he left behind something that would change everything. Not just gold, but also a final surprise that shook the whole Beets family to their core. What did Mike leave behind, and why did it have such a strong effect on those closest to him? Mike Beets has spent his whole life surrounded by gold, both in the ground and in the family business that made the Beets name famous. He is the second youngest in a mining family, with his father Tony Beets being the famous $15 million Klondike King and his siblings Kevin and Mona having carved out successful careers in their own right. In his family's gold mining business, Mike has become known as an expert on heavy machinery who can handle the toughest jobs on site. If something huge needs to be moved, like a 40-ton crane, an Oshkosh truck, or a multi-million-dollar wash plant, Mike is in charge and makes sure the operation doesn't stop. But despite his skills, Mike's wealth is shockingly small compared to his father's. Mike has worked in mining since he was a teenager. When he was 13, he started at the bottom, like all Beets kids do, while his father built an empire. Mike learned how to run heavy machinery, haul huge loads, and deal with the daily grind of life on a gold claim. Fast forward to now, and he's one of the best operators in the business. But here's the catch. He's only worth $200,000, which is less than 2% of Tony's huge fortune. Even his older brother Kevin is worth $2 million. But Mike is still trying to prove himself, and the biggest question is why the Beets family? Not like other mining crews, it's not a business with boardrooms and investors. It's a dynasty built on hard work, risk, and a little luck. Tony came to Canada with a dream and built a gold mining empire along the way. He made sure that his kids worked just as hard as any other miner. For Mike, that meant getting up early, working long hours in freezing weather, and doing the hardest jobs. By the time he was in his late teens, he was running heavy. The truth is that Tony Beets is still the boss, while Kevin and Monica have taken on bigger leadership roles. Mike, on the other hand, is still working in his father's shadow. He's respected and experienced, but he doesn't own the business, so he's still making a miner's wage instead of an owner's fortune. Mining isn't cheap, and neither is running a crew the size of Team Beets. Mike makes about $25,000 per episode of Gold Rush. That he makes about $500,000 a season, which is a good salary, but Tony makes a lot more money from the business, and Mike's only job outside of TV is doing hard work at the mine, which pays much less than what his father and siblings make as decision makers. The gap is clear. Kevin and Monica work in the business side of mining, while Mike does the hard work on the ground. Most people know Mike for his role on Gold Rush, but there's one thing they don't know about him. When Mike isn't hauling gold and rich dirt across the Yukon, he's fighting in full-contact medieval battles. Yes, real sword fights. He's a medieval recreationist, which means he puts on a 60-pound suit of armor and fights in real nightly battles. It's a hobby that makes him different from the rest of his family. While Tony and Kevin are totally focused on mining, Mike has another passion that's just as intense, mining by day and night. It's an interesting contrast in the Yukon. When he's not working as a machine operator, he's training for tournaments, swinging swords, and living a very different kind of adventure. But back in the mining world, things aren't always smooth between Mike and Tony. They work together, and there have been times when things got heated. One of the worst fights happened when a TRL shut down without warning. Tony, being a tough boss, expected Mike to fix the problem right away, but when Tony wasn't happy, he made it clear that mining isn't about making excuses, it's about getting the job done. That's been the theme of Mike's career. He's smart, he works hard, and he's one of the best machine operators on Team Beets. But unlike Kevin, who stepped up as a leader, Mike is still proving himself. With a net worth of $200,000, Mike is still not as rich as his father or even his siblings. But the truth is that Mike is a worker. Unlike Tony and Kevin, Mike doesn't own the mine. This means that while Tony and Kevin make a lot of money from gold sales and business deals, Mike is still making a miner's wage. This makes me wonder if he will ever be able to leave his father's shadow. Mining is risky, expensive, and unpredictable. One season can make or break a crew. While Tony has made a fortune through years of smart decisions, Mike is still working hard in the day-to-day operations. That doesn't mean he isn't valuable. In fact, Mike is often the one taking the biggest risks. If something goes wrong with the equipment, he's the one fixing it, moving it, or getting it back. And speaking of things going wrong, there was one time when the Beets crew almost lost a lot of money. Mike was hauling a $300,000 wash plant, which was one of the most important pieces of mining equipment on site. It was supposed to be a simple transport job, but disaster struck. The job was supposed to be as simple as loading a 25-ton wash plant and moving it 20 miles, and get it running at Dominion Creek. It took 4 hours or 5 hours of careful driving, but nothing is ever that easy in gold mining. Mike Beets was in charge of moving the $300,000 plant and making sure it got there in one piece. It was a high-stakes mission with one goal: to keep the equipment intact and running every time. The plant, which was called the Kiwi Wash Plant, had been sitting at Paradise Hill all season collecting rust and dust. It wasn't in perfect condition. Tony Beets agreed to move the machinery, and Mike was in charge of transporting it. The machinery was loaded onto a huge lowboy trailer secured with industrial-grade chains and set up for the long haul. The first few miles went smoothly as the convoy rolled through the dirt roads, making tight turns and navigating unpredictable terrain, something the Beets crew had done countless times before. Suddenly, one of the chains that was holding the trailer in place snapped. The weight shift happened instantly and without warning. Suddenly, the wash plant became unbalanced, and the team had only seconds to react. In that time, the huge structure crashed off the side of the trailer and hit the rocky ground below, creating a cloud of dust and the sound of metal scraping against rock that could be heard throughout the valley. Mike's stomach must have dropped. A $250,000 piece of mining equipment was now lying on its side, partially buried in gravel and potentially broken. In gold mining, every second counts. If the wash plant doesn't work, there is no gold, and no gold means no profits. This wasn't just about fixing a mistake, it was about saving the season. Tony Beets wasn't going to wait around. He quickly put together a recovery crew with 2 huge front-end loaders, the kind of machines that could lift thousands of pounds without breaking a sweat. Even with their power, this wasn't going to be an easy fix. The plan was simple but risky: hook chains to the plant lift. Slowly move it back onto its base without damaging it anymore. If they made a mistake, the plant could fall in the wrong direction, breaking important parts or even getting stuck beyond repair. Mike jumped into one of the loaders and took charge of the recovery effort. He knew that if it wasn't done right, they could be facing weeks of delays and hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost gold. The first pull put a lot of stress on the chains, but the plant resisted its weight, deeply embedded in the dirt, but slowly, inch by inch, it started to move. The tension in the air was high. One mistake and the whole structure could fall over, damaging it beyond repair. The loaders changed how they were holding on, making sure the force was even and under control. With one final pull, the wash plant landed back on its base with a heavy thud. There was instant relief. The structure was back upright, but could it still be used? A first inspection showed visible dents, scratches, and some bent support beams, but the main parts, the slow screens and shaker, were still in good shape. Against all odds, the plant had survived the fall. There was no time to waste, so the crew quickly reinforced the chains and double-checked every fastening point before trying to transport it again. This time, they moved more slowly and were more careful at every turn and bump, so the trip took twice as long. Finally, after 8 long, hard hours, the Kiwi Wash plant arrived at Dominion Creek. The crew unloaded it right away and carefully set it up for immediate use. What could have been a disaster turned into a... Although Mike had been in the business for years, this experience taught him that no job is ever truly routine. One broken chain almost cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars and put their whole operation at risk. Gold mining isn't just about digging holes and running slack boxes. It's also about handling million-dollar equipment with precision and care. This wasn't the first time Mike had had trouble on the road transporting gold. While having the right tools is one thing, getting through dangerous terrain with them is quite another. One of Mike's toughest times was when he had to fight a 15-ton semi-trailer off of a steep slope. Mountain Road, the road to Indian River, was notorious for being dangerous, with steep drops, loose gravel, and unpredictable weather. On this trip, Mike's truck hit a wet patch in the middle of a climb, and all of a sudden he lost control. The back wheels started to slide, and then the whole truck started to drift sideways. There was nothing he could do. It looked like the whole rig was going to go over the edge for a few scary seconds, but Mike had been in a tough situation before, so he kept his cool, braced the truck, and radioed for help. Levon Beets was nearby and rushed in with another vehicle to anchor the truck before it could slide any further. A heavy-duty chain was put on, and with a coordinated pull, they were able to stabilize the semi and get it moving again when they got there. When they finally got to the top, they were clearly relieved. The rest of the trip was mostly downhill, but the battle had already been won. This season had tested Mike in ways that most people couldn't imagine. He had to haul a $300,000 wash plant off a mountainside, fix the damage from a near-catastrophic slide on Hunker Summit, and keep the operation running smoothly. For most people, that would be too much to handle, but for Mike, it was just another day in the Yukon. Mike's life is much more mysterious than his father's, who became famous as the loud, no-nonsense leader of the Beets family. Mike doesn't want to share details about his personal life with the public, and he doesn't use social media. This keeps fans guessing about what happens when the cameras stop rolling for someone who has spent years on TV. He has managed to keep his life surprisingly private. There are no public records of a wife, no confirmed relationships, and no visible signs of a... While his brother Kevin and sister Monica have been more open about their personal lives, Mike keeps his attention on the job, which is how most people know him. Mining isn't just a job for him, it's a way of life that he's had since he was 13. He has worked under Tony's leadership and learned every part of the business from the ground up. While Kevin recently quit to start his own mining operation, Mike has stayed loyal to the family business, running Paradise Hill. Over the years, he's become the operation's backbone, showing that he's not just working for Tony, he's also building a career in gold mining for himself. His job is huge, from managing crew members to taking care of multi-million-dollar equipment, and he keeps going even when things go wrong or the weather gets rough in Yukon. But working for Tony Beets isn't easy. His father is one of the most demanding people in the business. There have been times when Mike and his dad didn't agree, but it was always about business. Tony expects results, and when things go wrong, it's up to Mike to fix them. For example, when a TRL unexpectedly shut down, Tony wanted his son to take charge. Mike hesitated, saying that someone had told him it wouldn't move, but Tony wouldn't have it. In his eyes, the job isn't done until the problem is solved, and giving up isn't an option. There is a lot of pressure to work for the Beets family, but Mike has learned how to handle it better than Kevin and Monica. Mike has taken on more of the heavy lifting, while Kevin has moved on to his own claim to prove that he can mine without his father's direct supervision. Monica is in charge of gold cleanup, making sure that every ounce of gold collected is properly weighed and accounted for, while Mike is in charge of the machines, making sure that everything stays moving, whether it's a 40-ton... He's the one who makes mining possible, whether it's a 25-ton wash plant, a crane, or a semi-truck carrying thousands of pounds of equipment up dangerous Yukon roads. And now that gold prices are at all-time highs, every piece of equipment, every transport job, and every operation he oversees is more valuable than ever. His dedication to the business hasn't gone unnoticed. Even Tony has said that Kevin may have chosen a different path, but he's stepped up in a big way. Running Paradise Hill isn't easy, but he's doing it. Mike has kept the mine running smoothly and shown that he is a good leader. He has also been a big part of some of the biggest moves the Beets family has ever made, like moving back to Indian River after 4 years away. That move alone required transporting huge machines over steep, dangerous terrain, which most people wouldn't even try, but Mike saw it as just another challenge to be overcome. The biggest question now is, what will happen next, since Tony is still running the family business? Mike has the experience to do it. He has always loved mining, but he has never been one to seek attention or talk about his long-term goals. If he ever wants to start his own business, he has the knowledge to do so, but for now he has stayed loyal to his father's business, keeping Paradise Hill running and making sure that the Beets family remains one of the most successful mining teams in the Klondike. With everything he has built, it's clear that Mike Beets is more than just a miner. Tony's son, he's a leader in his own right, a skilled operator, and a key figure in one of the most successful gold mine operations in modern history. His future may still be a mystery, but one thing is for sure: he'll do whatever he wants to do next on his own terms.